Hey everybody, it's Brad with another Floriani Total Control U video for you today. And today I've got a pretty fun project for us to do. These little cars that I have, these guys right here with the bobbins for wheels, I have these sitting on the counter at the store and people are always picking them up and commenting on them. And I made these in a Floriani club more than 4 years ago, and at that time, for whatever reason, I didn't do a video on it that month. I don't remember why, but these are a pretty easy and fun little project, and it lets us use the buttonhole feature in the software to create the opening for the bobbins to go through to be the wheels, and we're going to digitize these using a photograph, which is intimidating at first. It can be, but it's actually pretty easy. As you can see, I didn't put a whole ton of detail into these, and they look pretty good. I mean, everybody, they're immediately recognizable as cars. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go and digitize one of these little cars. I'm actually going to do my car, which is an Audi S5. So I went and I did a Google search for Audi S5 side profile, okay, and I found a good picture of it. Now, for making these cars, we're going to want a picture that is entirely from the profile. I don't want to be at an angle at all. So, you kind of have to look for a car that you want to make a little embroidery design of that's a perfect profile like this. It just doesn't work if it's not. Well, I don't know. I've never actually tried doing it not from a profile because it doesn't seem like it would work to me. But anyway, so if you find a side profile picture of a car that you want to try this with, a good idea is going to be to crop it down so that you don't have, like, say, all this space over here and all this space over here and all this space up here, because it's going to make it easier to size the picture before we start digitizing it if it's cropped. So if you don't know how to do that and you don't have any kind of image editing program or know how to use whatever image editing program you have, what you can do is wherever the file that you downloaded is, if you right click it and you choose open with here and then pick paint, you're able to just go in, and if it's zoomed, if it's a massive image like this one, you can just go down here. See, this is in the bottom corner. We can zoom out. I just click that minus sign once, and then I use the select and just click and drag a box pretty close to the edge of the car here, like that, so that pretty much it starts and stops right at the edges of where the car is, and then just click on crop right here, and then you save this image. So File, save as. I already did this. I saved it as Audi S5 crop. But that way, you'll see in kind of the first step that we do, it'll be a lot easier to figure out how big this thing that we're going to trace is. So let's go ahead and get over to our software now. I'm going to open up my Floriani, and what we're going to do is we're going to use the backdrop tool to bring this image into our software. That's this one here. It looks like a little mountain scene. We're going to left click on that. And then you want to navigate to wherever you have it. I have it in my embroidery junk folder and in a subfolder called cars. So I'm going to choose this Audi S5 crop.jpg image and choose open. And we see that this image that I downloaded is really, really big. Okay, it's 500 millimeters. What's that in freedom units? Hang on, inches. 20. So at its default size, this image that I downloaded, even cropped, is 20 inches wide, which is really, really massive. You may actually run into this when you download very high quality images. Sometimes if you have a computer that's not super mighty, you may run out of memory when you're working on an image that's this large when you start adding in stitches and stuff like that. So we could go in and resize this down to kind of a more reasonable size before we start digitizing it. I just want to show you how you would do that. If you bring in an image like this one and it just comes in and it's just massive, 20 inches wide. So yeah, we can size this down. Like, I can size it down to whatever size I want. But when we do that, the image size in terms of how big it is on how high a quality of an image it is still there. And sometimes you'll find problems where if you don't have a really powerful computer, your software may crash on you while you're working on a massive image like this. So it's not going to be a problem on my computer, but if you needed to do that, what you would do is back here in the in Paint, I'm going to right click and do Open with Paint. I could simply go up here to resize and change this size here. We could make this probably a quarter of the original size and still have all the detail that we need. So if I go in and I'll save this one as S5 crop sized. Okay. If you've got a pretty mighty gaming PC like I do, then you probably don't need to do that. But you know, if you're working on like a little laptop that's 10 years old, you may need to. And so just to show you how I could go in and see if I click back on my backdrop tool, it doesn't let me pick another one. You actually have to, when you have a backdrop up, you actually have to right click and then load backdrop here. But here, so we'll go in and crop size and see how big this one comes in. So this one comes in at just over 5 inches. So this one I actually want to make a little bit bigger because I want to make my car about 6 inches wide. So that's 7, 6.3, that looks pretty good. Now, that makes it a little bit easier. The fact that I cropped it makes it a little bit easier here because I can go pretty much by what the actual width of the backdrop is and be pretty sure that that's about how big my image that I digitize is going to end up being. If we didn't have it cropped, you just kind of have to measure it. You could measure it using, for instance, the ruler tool here. We can see exactly how wide this from here to here is 6.12 inches. So I said roughly 6, so that's pretty good. Now, I'm going to turn off my grid. I have, sometimes I use a grid, sometimes I don't. In this case, I want to turn it off because it kind of is making it a little busy on here. So the way you do that is over here in your left-hand toolbar, you just left-click on grid, and that'll just turn it right off for you. Now, let's take a look at this guy. So we are going to be using bobbins for the wheels. And one consideration when you decide what size to make your own little cars is that you need to make sure that the bobbin that you choose to use is going to be appropriately scaled for the wheel size of the car that you're doing. Now, I'm going to be using a Class M bobbin for mine because I want to have big, shiny wheels. But if you're using a Class 15 or some other bobbin, you want to make sure that you scale the size to fit that. Now, my bobbin that I'm going to be using was a roughly 25 millimeters around. And so what I could do is go in and check myself and make sure that my wheels aren't crazily out of scale. Like my bobbins are not going to be crazily out of scale. So if I draw a circle here, and here, let's put this in metric. This is just about 24 millimeters wide. So yeah, that's fine. The size that the actual wheel is not that far off from the size of my actual bobbins that I'm going to be using. So almost like I planned it that way, right? But that's something to think about. You want to measure the bobbin that you're planning to use and scale the image size so that your finished product, the wheels don't look comically small. Anyway, let's go ahead and start digitizing this guy. So if we go and look at my finished products here, we can see that I didn't bring in too much detail on these. So on this one here, we see this headlight is just a little blobby shape. The arches for the wheel wells are just a loose satin fill, or just a loose satin fill. And then, I didn't bother with trying to do fancy reflections or anything like that. I just used a gray thread, like a light gray thread for the windows and for the windshield here. And let's go ahead and take a look at our photo. On mine, you don't actually see any windshield at all. So I think what I'm going to do is we're going to take some artistic license and not deal with the fact that these windows are transparent in the picture. We're going to go in and just kind of trace them like this. I'm going to go and do this here and here and here, and I'm just cutting right across where the rear view is. And then from here, I'm just going to close my shape. Actually, I'm going to hit Shift and then C to close my shape. Then I'm going to go and use my shape tool here. And when you do this, if your object doesn't get selected automatically, the way that mine just did, there's actually a setting that we can change in preferences for that. I much prefer the way that I digitize, to have the software automatically select a shape when I create it. And if yours isn't doing that, it's in, let's see, I think it's in environment. Yes. And you put a check mark here next to automatically select created paths. That's why mine does that, because I have that setting set. Anyway, we're going to go ahead and hit the shape tool. That's this little icon here. If you don't see it, it's because your object isn't selected. So we're going to left click on that, and now I can grab this purple line here and just drag it up to kind of match the curvature of the top of the car. And if I decide I need to, I can grab this point here and move it. I can then grab the curve and adjust it. You don't really need to spend a ton of time, though, making all of this super perfect. Nobody's going to be looking at this photograph, when they're looking at your cool little 3D car. So anyway, the type of stitch that I want to use for this is just a simple standard fill stitch. So I'm going to go down here to my very first standard fill tool down here. It's the first purple star. Left click on that, and then I want to pick a color. I'm just going to do a light gray. Okay, just like that. We can put it in 3D. See it? Yeah, look at that. Looks good. Now, I'm going to go and do the next little bit of window here. So I'm going to go and trace in this part. Now, I have an option. I could draw this as one continuous shape, and then kind of like I do in this one, just kind of use like a run stitch or something to delineate that. Or I could draw it in two pieces if I wanted to, and I think that's actually what I'm going to do. Because this is one window, and this little pillar here is actually separate and doesn't move down when you roll the window down. I know that because I have this car. So I'm going to do it the way that I want. You could do it the way that you want. I'm just going to go in, trace this little kind of trapezoidy shape in here. I'm going to close my shape here. I don't want to try to click here because then my shape isn't going to be perfectly closed. I close my shape with Shift and then C. I'm going to use my shape tool again, and I'm just going to kind of pull up a little bit of curve to the top of this. Okay, and then we're going to use the standard fill again for this one. And then I'm just going to kind of go over to the next area here, and we'll trace this shape in. Now, if I want to, I could be pathing between these. Let me go ahead and close this shape. And sometimes it'll change the color on you for seemingly no reason. I don't know why. I'm just going to go and set the color to the color that I want. And let's see, pull a little bit of curve into that. And maybe move this point a little bit. But so what I mean by that, when I said that I could be pathing, if you look at where the start and stop points are for each, didn't mean to move that, and hit undo. If you click on something in your design field, often you can accidentally move it a little bit when you click on it. So best practice is actually to, and I undid my fill, is actually to select your objects using the sequence view over here. That there's no chance of you accidentally moving your design if you do that. But anyway, if we look at the start and stop points by using the shape tool, we can see that my first shape here is going to start here at the bottom of the windshield, and it's going to stop over here. Right? Now, if I were trying to make this kind of more efficient, my start point doesn't really matter that much because it's my first object, but I could have my stop point be over here, and then for the next fill, we could have the start point be here and the stop point be, say, here, and for my next fill, we could have the start point is where it is and the stop point kind of wherever, because I think that after we do this, it's going to be far enough away that we're not going to be traveling. And when I say traveling, what I mean is we could add a stitch that goes from here to here so that the machine doesn't have to stop and do a trim. Now, if we were going to have, like, let's say, like this little bit of reflection along the top here, if I was going to kind of do that as like a light gray, then I could hide my traveling stitch inside of there, but I'm not going to do that. You know what I could do, though, in order to have a travel stitch from here to here, is I could kind of put in, like, I was gonna just have this pillar be kind of the same color as the rest of the car, but if you look, it is actually quite a bit darker than the rest of the car. So if I put in like a satin stitch here later on, then I could easily have my travel stitch going from here to here, and a travel stitch going from here to here, which makes it so that when this design gets run out, it'll sew out this whole thing, and then instead of stopping and cutting, it'll just run over to the next one, go and sew it out, run over to the next one, go and sew it out. And it's best practice to do that because, number one, you may have a machine that doesn't cut jump stitches, but the more likely scenario is that you do have one that cuts jump stitches, but you want to minimize jump trims because there's only so many trims your trimmer will do before it needs to be serviced, and it also takes time for the machine to have to stop, tie in, cut, move over, tie in, slowly ramp back up to full speed. Whereas if it's pathed, then you don't have to worry about that. So what I'm doing here now is I'm selecting both of these guys. I'm going to make them into a run stitch, just this icon down here. And then we're going to move them into the right order. So this first one needs to be right after the first fill. So I'm going to use these buttons in my sequence view here to nudge that up to where it goes. And the same one for this one, nudge. And we can see that if we watch the design sew out using the stitch simulator, it goes and sews out this whole thing, travels to the next one, travels to the next one. It doesn't like go from here to there. It's all pathed correctly and sequenced correctly. Now, what else do we have that we're going to do with this color? I think that for this light gray, I'm going to do the headlight in this same color. And I'm going to actually do the turn signal too on this one. If you look at this one, I didn't do the turn signal on here. And I don't remember why, but I'm going to this time. So I'm going to zoom in over here. I'm not going to worry about all the details and everything in here. I'm just going to go and draw kind of the basic shape of this. So kind of from here to here to here. Now I'm going to leave like a cutout for the turn signal to be in. And then we're going to close this shape. We're going to use the shape tool to kind of pull my curves out like this. Maybe give it a little bulbous bit at the bottom too. And then we'll just take this and make it a fill stitch. And then what I want to do is I want to get this kind of yellow-orange turn signal part. I'm going to trace it a bit bigger than it is. Close my shape. I'm going to leave this kind of jagged looking, and we'll pick a color, pick like an orange. And then this time I'm going to do an auto satin. Long tube-shaped things generally should be done with a satin stitch, so that's what I'm going to do with that. Let's put it in 3D. Yeah, that looks okay. I think that's going to be just fine. Now, what else we got here? I don't think I'm probably going to do anything else in that really light color, and I'm not going to do anything else in this orange. It would be tempting to go and put orange. You see how there's orange all along here? But that's a reflection of something that's on the road. So it wouldn't make any sense to have that included in our little freestanding car because, unless we're going to put a set of yellow lines next to it, it's not going to be reflecting anything. So I think the next thing that I want to trace, I think I'll do the wheel arches, and I'm going to do these in a darker gray is what I'm going to do. We're going to trace these in what might look like kind of a funny way. And I'm actually second guessing having done this in the sequence that I did. You know what? Maybe I won't do the wheel arches. Maybe what I will do... Yeah, I think I'm going to do these thin lines that are the door, where the door, opens. And there's one for the back door as well. I'm going to do those with just a run stitch, and then I'm going to kind of back that up so that actually sews out before this stuff, which actually it could just sew out before. It could be the first thing that sews out because I want it to be under this stitch. So let's see how this is going to look. We're going to go in and start drawing this kind of in here, and then I'm going to travel. I'm going to travel inside of here because this is going to be a satin stitch later. and then I'm going to pick it up here, bring this, let's see, I want to have this come up to here, and I'm going to pull that curve out. But do I want to go across this way and then come down, or do I want to just take this straight back down? You could really do either one. I'm going to come straight back down here, which means I'm going to have to pull this curve out 2 times, and I got to click that point pretty accurately, but we'll see if I come to regret that. And then we're going to come over here and then go, I'm going to do the same thing up here. Although look, you know, there's this black line going right across here. I'm second guessing myself. And if you do this, you can just hit backspace. Backspace will go back a point. And I'm going to go to here, to here, and then back down here. Now this I'm going to have to come, see, I don't have this line, so I got to come in and get that line, and then come back here, and then here and here. How are we going to do this? Because this picks back up down here. So if I went across here, then I kind of have to go, you know, I don't like this. I don't like going across there, so I'm not gonna. I'm gonna go up here, come back down, go here, and then this line here, I don't know why that's there. That's like not real. Bring this back down here. Okay, there's kind of a curve right there, so I'm going to let that be able to be pulled out. Bring this up here, and then come back down through my points, and then I'm going to come out to here, travel underneath of this, because remember, that's going to be another stitch, and then we're going to bring this to here, and then maybe I'll take this right to here, and then I'll do this thick line next, this like shaded bit where there's kind of like protruding metal and it's a shadow. So this whole thing is going to be a dark gray, so I'm going to pick kind of this like dark gray color, and then I'm going to pull my curves out, and remember, a couple of my curves are going to be a little harder than normal because there's 2. See that and that, and I don't want them to look like 2, so I really have to get them right on top of each other. This one too. So I'm moving my nodes around before I start pulling the curves out. See, this needs to curve down like that. You see how they're kind of diverging here? We want to have that happen as little as possible. That's good enough. Okay, here, this is going to get pulled out. That is a travel stitch. This, we'll kind of bow that out to make it look a little more natural. I'm using the arrow keys to pan through the design, by the way. That's how I'm moving where I'm looking. I'm using my arrow keys on my keyboard to do that. Okay, that's fine. Okay, so let's go ahead and turn this into a run stitch. And yeah, this is a little too separated for me. So get my shape tool. Oop, didn't mean to undo. Go ahead and this mouse I'm using is being frustrating. I'm going to zoom in a little bit more, see if I can't get that a little better. There, that's a little bit better. And then I think if I move my points down here, yeah, this is the problem. That's why I couldn't get them to be dead on. There we go. That's pretty good. Not much of a divergence at all there. Let's check the other one. Yeah, this is the problem. I didn't click right in the same spot. Okay, that's good. That one looks good. Okay, so now I want to do this kind of big long shadow line, and I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna trace this whole thing. I'm gonna do a point here, and then kind of along here, and then it's more or less straight all along here until it starts to curve, and I'm going to do another point down there. And then I'm going to trace the underside of it. And then kind of close the shape off, and it's going to come to a point there. Now we got to just pull our shapes out like this. And I'm just going to move this down just slightly. Okay, that looks pretty good. And then what we'll do is we'll make this a satin stitch that goes all the way along. And we just want to make this have the start point. Oops, we want to make this have its start point be down here. And it is. Okay, so it did that automatically for us because it knew that we stopped the last color there. So that's pretty cool. And put it in 3D. Yeah, so I like that. Let's actually go in and get rid of the underlay. So I'm going into my properties of this satin stitch. I'm going to get rid of the underlay, and I'm going to reduce the density a little bit of this. Right now it's at 0.5. I'm going to nudge it all the way up to 0.7 to make that like more of like an accent. Like if we look at this one, you see how a lot of these are real low density? I did that on purpose to make them kind of more subtle. So we'll see. I mean, if I don't like that, I can always come back and change it. Okay, so now we're going to do the wheel wells. And I really don't have a good way to path to them from anywhere. I guess I could, because remember, we're going to actually have this stuff sew out first. I could actually travel back through here in retrospect, because my stop point is here. So I could just come down here. I could actually get rid of this whole part of here. You know what? I just had a great idea. Check this out. We're going to go in to this run. I'm going to use the shape tool. I'm going to get rid of these nodes here. They actually are unnecessary. So this whole part is actually unnecessary. So I'm going to use my shape tool, click and drag a box around all these nodes, and then just delete them. That gets all of that stitching out of there. And now what we can do is we can travel down here, and this traveling stitch that's going to travel me to where I want to come into this is going to also be that part of the, the car's bodywork. So we go and we make this into a run, and we leave it in the same order. And then now we're going to go in and draw our wheel wells. And I'm going to do this in a weird way. If you're not familiar with seeing me draw stuff like this, watch this. So I'm going to do the bottom left-hand corner. So I'm making this like half moon shape here, right? Bottom left-hand corner, going to go all the way around to the bottom right-hand corner, and then do this one, and then go all the way back around to here, then close my shape, right? Okay, there is method to the madness, trust me. So we go in, and I'm going to grab one of these. We'll see which one it is. It's the inner line, and this is the outer line. And then what I can do is click on the line itself. This mouse is not very good for this. But then I can move these individual handles to kind of fatten up my line. Now, if you just can't get the hang of doing this, you could totally just kind of click dots around it to do it. But I like doing it this way because then I have like perfect curves. And I don't have a bunch of like jagged lines. Just have to kind of get it so that it matches the shape pretty well. And then it looks like we're getting pretty close. Let's see. I think this really needs to be here. This needs to be here. Okay. Let's fatten it out a little bit more. I don't like the way this inner line is looking. That's better. Okay, and so what we're going to do here is this needs to be that same dark gray, and I want to make this a auto satin. And for this one, I'm going to actually leave it at the default density. I want this to be bolder looking than my line up here does. And let's go ahead and check the start and stop point on this guy. So the start point is where I want it, but the stop point, I want this to stop all the way over here. And what we're going to do is the last step is actually going to be a satin stitch that goes all the way around the outside of it. And so we can actually path along the edge of the car. So what we're going to do is we're going to use our drawing tool to just path this right underneath of here. Now, is this the bottom of the car? I think it actually is. Not that anybody's going to be measuring anything. Whatever. I'm just going to go along here. That's going to be covered up. And then we're going to stop it right there. Now, could we just copy and paste this wheel well from here to here? I don't know. Let's see. So I'm gonna select it, and then I'm actually going to use the duplicate button right here, this one. And then we're going to grab the X in the middle here and drag it over and see whether this lines up. It really doesn't. Really doesn't line up perfectly. What if we smoosh it a little bit? Like that. Does it line up better now? It's all right. I probably, in retrospect, would just have drawn this again if I had my druthers, but we're going to go ahead and work with it and smoosh it until it looks right. Actually, you know what? That looks pretty good. So we're going to just leave that. And then, okay, let's take a look at some other areas where we could do some kind of shading. You know, I think I definitely do want to do the door handles. Do I want them to be a different shade of dark than any of this other stuff? I'm not sure. And should I have pathed up to here and then put this column or these satin stitches in there? Probably would have been smart, because I'm going to have some unnecessary trims now, because just the way that I'm doing this, because I've just realized I need this over here. I'm not going to go and redigitize the whole thing, but for efficiency's sake, we should have done that. I'm going to close this shape. In class, I'll have everybody do that. Put in a satin stitch there. I don't like the bottom of this. Why is this like this? That's better. And remember, all of this color is actually going to be before this color. So this is going to be under these, the windows. I just haven't bothered to change the order yet. And make that a satin stitch too. Here, you know, you always got to check the auto satin. It actually put in an inclination right here that I didn't want. You see that stitch direction? I don't like that. We're going to get rid of that. Right click, delete inclination, and that is how I wanted that to look. You always got to be careful with that. All right, you know what we could do actually is if we just go and take this whole silver color change, we could go and use this button here and just move this last, and that's going to put it on top. Now, do we want to have, well, we definitely need to have the rear view mirror. So actually we shouldn't, because this is going to be this dark color too. I'm going to put it in 2D so I can see through my stitching. I'm just going to draw this in. Doesn't need to be anything super beautiful. And put a point there, put a point there, close the shape. No, I want that to be more curvy. I think I'm going to get rid of this point. and just kind of pull that in a little bit and pull this out like that. Give this a little bit more of a curve inside of here. And let's make that a dark fill. So I should have waited to move this last because now these guys are separate, but I'll worry about the order at the end. So one thing that we could do is we could go in and kind of put like another shade of color around this sill all the way around if we wanted to. Like if we're gonna sew this out and have it be like a light blue, like I could sew this out on and use the material. Like if we look in here, this material that I'm using is felt, and I could use like a dark blue felt kind of to get the this color, and then have like a lighter blue that I put in around here. Like I could go in and kind of just trace all the way around this, like make like a wedge to like here. I don't know if I want to do that. I'm gonna put it in 3D and look. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of up to you how much detail you put into one of these. I'm not going to do that, actually, in retrospect. I'm just not going to do that. What should I do with these door handles, though? Do I want the handwell behind them, or just ignore that and just do kind of this? Remember, you don't need to have all the detail in. Just kind of do one of those there, and I'm just going to duplicate this and put the other one over here and just see how that looks. There's a good argument for doing this whole like reflected bit here. Maybe I'll do that in this light gray, but do it like super low density. Let's see. Let's see what it looks like. Get this whole like reflection going on to kind of indicate the shape of the body work. Okay, I'm going to make this light gray. And I could totally be using more colors if I wanted to. I just don't want to. It's kind of a stylistic choice. What did I want to do? I want to make this a loose satin stitch with no underlay. So I'm going to set my density to pretty low, which remember, the higher the number, the lower the density, and then I want to get rid of the underlay so that it's just a zigzag on there. Yeah, I think that looks pretty good. Okay, so of course that really should be before this, so I'm gonna end up with, all right, this I'm gonna have go down first, move first, because I want to have the lines on top of that. I think. Do I like that better or not? I'm not sure. I'm not sure now whether I do or not. And the rest of the silver will move last. Okay. Oh, the taillight. We need to do the taillight. That's a definite. So that's going to be red. So let's zoom in over here and just trace this guy in. I'm not going to do the reflection on it. Yeah. Okay, and then so we've got kind of two more steps here. One, we are going to, oh, you know what? We should probably do something with this little detail right here. You see that? This is going to kind of look boring if we don't do something here in the front end, and there is this air intake right here. So let's go ahead and I'm going to draw this guy. close that shape. I'm going to make this that dark gray, and I'm going to just go ahead and auto satin that, and we'll have that little bit of body work there at the front. Guess we could have like, you know, more detail down in here. It's up to you what you want to do. So basically there's 2 steps left for stuff that we actually have to make. We need to make the satin stitch that goes around the outside. Okay, so if you look at the ones that I made, it's actually a satin stitch that I'm cutting the felt against to kind of make them be freestanding. Oh, and by the way, these are 2-sided. So see, there's one side. I guess I don't have any pictures of the other side, but these are 2-sided. So we are going to have to copy and paste this whole thing and mirror image it, and then I'll talk about how to stick them together. But anyway, so we need to get the outline all the way around the whole car, and we need to put in our buttonholes for the bobbins to go in. So for the car, I'm just going to use the drawing tool here, and I'm just going to kind of trace the outside of it. So here, and then it's going to come around to here, here. You don't have to be super accurate. Just cut the wheels right off. Like that. Don't trace up inside here. We need to have felt here for the buttonhole to be in. Then I'm going to go right over wherever this one was, cutting right through the wheel. I might need to move this up or just kind of fudge that. See that? Because I don't want to have that sticking out below my satin stitch. Up here. And this is kind of all one curve till the end, so Shift C to close it. Bring up my shapes, or my shape tool rather. Okay, can't get this perfect, so I need to use the little handles here to smoosh the curve down a little bit, but that looks pretty good. Pull that down, kind of get the little bit of a spoiler they got on the end there. Pull this out a little bit. Don't want it to look too blocky. I'll get rid of this point. Using the arrow keys to pan through the design. The hood. Zoom out. Okay, that looks okay. I'm going to make this the dark color, and I'm going to make it a steel stitch, this one here. And it's okay that that looks so fat. Okay, now, next step is going to be the buttonholes. Now, what you want to do is your buttonhole needs to be a little bit larger than your button, or than your bobbin that you're going to use. And I'm going to tell you the easiest way, rather than guessing how big to make it, the easiest way to figure out how big this needs to be is to use your sewing machine, the automatic buttonholer, put the bobbin in the buttonholer and use that to measure and make a buttonhole, and then measure that with a sewing gauge and see how big it needs to be. So I believe that mine needs to be 26 millimeters. So I'm going to go and grab the buttonhole tool, and I'm just going to click and drag in a buttonhole, and then, oh, you got to do it long ways, not wide ways, dummy. Grab the buttonhole tool, it's right here. Click and drag in a buttonhole. Okay, and then I'm gonna size this. Right now it's 22.8. I want it to be 26. So I'm gonna go to transform, and for the height I'm gonna set this to 26, and I'm gonna hit apply. For the width, just like 5 is fine. We're gonna rotate this. Oops. Rotate it just 90 degrees. and then we're going to put this in where the wheel well is. Just like that. Then we're going to duplicate it, and we're going to put another one over here. The color of this doesn't really matter that much, and you're not going to see it because the bobbin is going to just completely overpower it. But I'm going to make them the same dark gray that the rest of the stuff is. And that's basically it. We're ready to go and sew this out. Now, what you're going to want to do, now, if you have a better way to get these things to stick together, go ahead and do that. I mean, I guess you could just sew them together, right? Like you could sew out. So here, let me hide my backdrop. And what we would do is we'd have this whole thing, and then we would copy and paste it, move the next one down, and take this guy and mirror image it this way. Okay, so that we have both sides of the car. But what you do is you sew this. So here's what I did anyway, is I took these and I sewed them out on felt with a fusible stabilizer with the fusible side upside down, okay? So the fusible side was not touching the felt, it was facing down in the machine bed. And then I just sewed them out on that, cut them out with a pair of scissors, stuck them together, and then hit them with a press. And that activated the fusible on both sides, and they have stuck together and been fine for this whole time. If you have another way that you would prefer to do that, you can do it however you want. That is how I did that. That's how I made these little freestanding cars, and everybody loves these. People come in and they pick them up and they're like, "Oh, how neat is that?" So you know, you can make one for your own car, or you can make one of a car that you like, or if you've got you know, like a little kid that you want to make, like maybe like a fabric. Like I know that there's, I used to sell it, actually, we don't have it anymore, but there was a panel that was like roads and stuff, and it was made so you could play with like Hot Wheels, you know, Matchbox cars and stuff like that on it. But you could make custom little cars and be able to have, you know, have them driving around on stuff like that. So anyway, that is the project that we're doing in class tomorrow, and I hope that you guys enjoyed learning how to do this, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.